Hi, I'm Ros Moatz, and I'm here to give you a preview of the scriptures that will be shared with us on February 12th. The first lesson comes to us from Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verses 15 through 20. This lesson gives direction about making clear choices, as our choices can come with consequences. When we make choices, do we charge ahead, allowing wants and feelings and circumstances to lead us? Or do we take our time? Do we go to prayer? Do we evaluate? And do we ask God for guidance? If we back up and we look at verse 11, God assures us that keeping His commandments is not too difficult or beyond our reach. God calls us to choose life. That's a life in relationship with Him. This relationship is not only for us, but for future generations. For me personally, it says, the life that I lead today leaves a legacy for those in my family, in their future, for my children, my grandchildren, and even my future great-grandchildren. I seek a relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, daily. I didn't need to choose Him because He had already chosen me as His beloved child. Do you know that He also has chosen you, and He loves you abundantly? What type of legacy are you leaving for your loved ones? The second lesson comes to us from 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 1 through 9. In this passage, Paul calls the Corinthians infants because they were not yet spiritually healthy or mature. They quarreled like children, which caused division and distraction from God. In today's society, immature Christians are controlled by the world's standards and not by God's. They seek to be recognized and praised for everything that they do, even to the point of thinking that they are better or smarter than others. Just like Paul, our spiritual teachers are to be respected for planting the seeds of the gospel, which leads to salvation. And they are to be respected because of what they know and what they can share with us, but we are never to place them on a pedestal. God's work involves many different individuals who all can use their God-given gifts and talents to share and to love others. But there are no superstars in God's army. Christ calls us to be teammates with no one performing on their own. We become useful members of God's team when we set our own desires aside and we choose to let Christ lead and guide us in all that we say and do. The gospel lesson comes to us from Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 37. There are a lot of things that are considered sin or that cause us to sin. We do these things at times that we don't consider sinful, and yet we think about how did that affect another person. And when we think about it, we know that it was sinful. Here's just one example. In verse 21, it says, "Do not murder." And in our human minds, we immediately think, do not take the life of another human being. There is more than one way to commit a murder. Are you a gossip? When we choose to talk about another person without their knowledge, it's gossip. And it's a sin. Or when we tell another person what we think someone else did without knowing the whole story or without knowing what is really truth, and without that person's permission, it's slander. Our mouth becomes the weapon, and our words commit the crime against someone else. We bear false witness, we break trusts, and we break friendships, and we damage reputations. We commit murder with our voice against another person. Sometimes this behavior is rooted in anger, bitterness, jealousy, greed, pride, and the list goes on and on. All these character flaws we come by naturally because we're human and we were born in sin. But God gave us free will to make our own choices, and this is why Jesus taught us right from wrong. He knew that we were born sinners, and he knew that there was an evil one out there, Satan, who would use these traits to lead us to make wrong choices. Are you known as a person of your word? Truthfulness seems like a rare commodity in today's society, and it leads us to feel like we need to end statements with, "I promise." Verse 37 says, "Simply let your yeses be yes and your no's be no." So let's choose to follow the example that Jesus has set before us. I hope this has been helpful and that you have a great week. Thanks for listening.